Hey guys, VaulSC here. Hope that you're having a good week. So last night I was down at the local gaming store where things are generally back to normal. In our country we've done very well with the COVID-19 pandemic and pretty much business as usual, luckily, but we just can't travel. Anyway, my good buddies Matt and Isaac were playing a game of Infinity. I myself didn't have an opponent. I was dropping off some models, that I'd borrowed for the 3D project. But I decided to stick around and take some pics of their games so we could do a little bit of a bat rep. So it happens that they were playing Tunguska versus NCA, the sectorials of Nomads and PanOceania, but the game was 400 points, which is a little bit of a rarity. We don't cover those games very much, but I think they're really cool. I'd be happy to play more larger games against people as often as I could, to be honest. Typically people are trying to practice for events and stuff, and it's always 300 points, but bigger games are good. I actually really like playing 400 points because people don't really have the experience in the background to sort of build cookie cutter lists and copy a lot of other people. And at that points level, your assault hackers start to become a little bit more interesting, and your monofilament weapons become a little bit more interesting, and you start to expect heavy infantry and tags and big link teams that you don't in other games. So definitely recommend it. So we'll get straight into it. I don't have copies of their army lists, but I can tell you it was a limited insertion Tunguska list, despite being 400 points, and a 20 model NCA list with 2 full groups. And this was our table here. When I showed up, I looked around the room to try and add more terrain to it, but we basically ran out. For some reason, there was a shortage of terrain today. So this is basically it. It was quite an open table, but nothing much I could do about that. Despite pilfering things from other tables to help out. I mean, the other terrain was in use by other games and other players. So this deployment zone over here is where the Nomad player, the Tunguska player, will be setting up, and on this side, this is where our NCA friend will be setting up. So Tunguska, we're going for a very rare Kriza Borax Harris team, where the guy at the front has the Mark 12, guy at the back has the HMG, and you've got a Harris Hollow Man up here with the Pelbot Zonbot guy ready to help out if somebody goes down. Beautiful close-up here on our Hollow Man friend. Just above him, like directly above him, there's a very long fire lane, and he's decided to hidden deploy his Spectre Sniper right here. So that's going to be model in hidden deployment. Daktari at the back, although she is hooked up to the Pelbot next to the Kriza, and right in front of her we've got Merry Problems. The Interventor Lieutenant going to be hanging out over here next to another helper bot that could potentially revive him in case he goes down to a hacking attack or something like that. And here we see a bit of a zoom out, or I'll just quickly draw what we've discussed. So hidden deployment sniper's way up here. He's got a massive long line through this part of the table, as well as some of this stuff right here, which is pretty significant. So you got Hollow Man, Kriza HMG, Kriza Mark 12. That's the little helper bot there, Daktari, the helper bot, the Interventor over here, Merry Problems. A couple of camo markers hanging around, so we've got one here and one here. They are both Heckler jammers with Fast Panda. Very popular profile. On the extreme left-hand side, you can see the NCA HVT going down, and the Tunguska one on the right over here. Those didn't really play much into the game. His opponent, setting up a Fusilier Link team. This is a background shot of the back-to-back shot of the missile launcher. This is directly opposite that long diagonal fire lane against the Spectre Sniper. But if we zoom out a little bit, unfortunately I started taking photos before my opponents, before these players actually completed the deployments. But roughly speaking, you've got an HMG down here, Fusilier over here, the missile launcher there, Hacker at the top, another Fusilier, there's another Fusilier not involved in the team, there's a CSU over this side, and some sort of bot around here, and where my face was hanging out, that's the HVT on that side. So that'll give you a rough view. There's a bit of a closer up look at the tower. So zooming out now, this is a bit of a shuffle around, but he's made a lot of people prone except for the missile launcher, of course, covering the long fire lanes towards the diagonal on the right-hand side. A lot of flash pulse bots and things, and to that effect he's taken an Evo repeater at the back here so that he can put up the support layer, which makes a lot of the bots burst too, so that's going to be significant for his Bulleteer and a lot of his little flash bots and sensor bots which you got hanging around the table. He's even taken that the baggage bot that has the combi rifle total reaction, which is a bit of a weird one. We very rarely see that. Warcore taking care of the flank on the left, and on this walkway here we've got the Blackfriar along with a bolt with the drop bay koala things and another bolt underneath the building. Those guys are there to really just spew out the mines into the midfield. By the way, this is a not field testing. What is it called? A frontline mission. So that's where you've got the 3 strips in the middle of the table, and you're basically looking to end the game with more points worth of stuff in the zone. So for example, if we've got 1 deployment zone along here, and then there's a little bit of a strip, and you're supposed to have, if you're, say, the Nomad's player over here, if you've got more of your stuff in this pink zone than your opponent, you get 1 point. Then, of course, the big prize is the middle, because you get several points for that one. You do get even more points for having your opponent's strip closest to them captured, but that one's a much harder one to get because you've got to actually move a lot of models and keep them alive over that side. Very good mission for going second in my view, but a lot of people feel that it's better to go first because it's a direct action mission where you just destroy things. It really depends more on your matchup and your lists than anything, although I'm known for taking second a lot in this mission. So back to the Blackfriar Bolts Link team. There's the bolt underneath the building, Walker on the left, and Reserve Trooper is this wonderful and beautiful tag here with a Salamander, I should call it, with the HRMC, getting some close-up pics, looking really cool, and it's just getting ready to move out and start mowing down some bots. We talked about this at the start, and we observed that this tag has BTS value of 9, but it's only going to take 1 crit from one of these flash pulse bots to just shut down the bot for the rest of the, so the tag for the rest of the turn, and it's burst 2 in ARO because of the Evo repeater support wear. So the Pano NCA can't take a Jotun, but this model is standing in for a Squallow. So it is a tag. It's the heavy grenade launcher Squallow tag, which can do some deadly spec fire. Not a Jotun, but it doesn't have the Squallow model, so that's a proxy stand-in behind the tower here where the Fusiliers are. So there it is, there in all its glory. And we can now move out with our deadly Salamander and start spewing forth many fiery bullets, and it does indeed do that. So initially moving out and starting to get lines on some of these bots. Now, I didn't particularly like the way he did this because he was moving into line of sight of, a couple of bots at a time. This is quite dangerous because if the bots somehow manage to get through your BTS or get a crit, what else are you going to do with this list in this turn? You've got the Harris team, but they aren't really going to be very effective at moving across the board when your tag's already spent a couple of orders. Most likely what will happen is that the Harris team will move over, maybe shoot a couple more bots, the engineer will revive them, and then you're getting yourself into a game where the Pano player hits back, does some damage back to you, and it's a little bit of a trade until the end game, where in the final turn, NCA having the final turn will mean that they can just move in, sweep into the middle zone, kill whatever's there, and just win very easily. So I don't like this overall strategy, but we'll continue to talk about that. The Salamander luckily getting some hits in, some kills, and peppering the bots full of holes and advancing much closer towards the position here. Unfortunately, this Palbot also getting a little bit exposed, but does manage to dodge at some point behind the yellow box. Anyway, Salamandra moving into a position where it can pick off, I think, 1 more bot and then go after the missile launcher itself, which again is a bit scary, but if he's got cover, if he's got armor 8, it goes down to armor 4. He's got 3 structure points, and he's obviously heavily favored to win the shootout given his HRMC, and does indeed do that. So the missile launcher is removed by the bot. We can then start to pick in here and try and get some sort of angles where we can take on the tag and take on the Fusilier HMG and get even more casualties here. So you can see he's taken out a bunch of bots in the background, doing well to complete that. But again, let's just pause here and consider the strategy, consider what's being committed to overall. The Salamandra can only get so much done. If it kills the Squallow, that will be great, but again, there is an engineer who can revive the Squallow. Getting all that done is a bit of an ask. Coming around here and killing 2 Fusiliers with heavy weapons, destroying the Squallow, killing 3 or 4 bots, that'd be a fantastic position to be in. But it doesn't completely win you the game, and if you just get flash pulsed or critted or something goes wrong initially, your first turn will really be squandered. So I don't love the strategy overall. You also have to be really careful to not run out of orders with the tag and leave it near to enemy territory, otherwise you will lose it, especially with the lack of backup. He does have the Spectre Sniper way up here in this tower to shoot through here, but once he brings something to bear on it, like the Squallow, it should be taken care of. So in we come, Salamandra moving through, doing a bit of a shootout here, and the tags do trade off, and the Salamandra wins it. The Squallow whiffs it, and Squallow ends up taking a couple of wounds, so has to push back here, back into total cover. Let's just move this cam a bit so you can see the Salamandra's position. So he's pulled back here, taken 2 wounds, and the Salamandra can continue pressing the assault. So now he's just tapping over a little bit more to get line of sight to the Fusilier with HMG, able to take him out pretty handily, and then we're starting to pull back. So you can see that point from which he's taking the shot, measured by the tape measure there, and then he's moving back along the side of the table and ending up closer to the Nomad deployment zone once he runs out of orders. I don't love this though. Let's just jump back to the main photo from the side of the table. So at the end of turn 1, we get a situation where the Salamandra is about there, right? And what he's done is he's eliminated the Fusilier heavy weapons over here, and there's a Squallow hiding behind that with 2 wounds taken. Don't love this position, because even though he's got the 1 sniper watching out, if that can be dealt with, coming in around here or around here, if you destroy that Salamandra, all he's really got left is that Harris team, and I don't particularly feel like 2 more turns of them walking around the board is going to just wipe out the whole Pano army. And if he just leaves them in the middle of the table in a passive way in the last turn, Pano should have stuff left to move in there. I mean, they can repair the Squallow. The Squallow might not have died by then. They've got the Bulleteer. They've got the Blackfriar Link team to do that as well. Don't love it. Definitely don't love it. So what in fact happens here is that our Pano friend from NCA goes ahead and brings on a Garuda with boarding shotgun right behind the Salamandra. And this is pretty terrible. He spends a couple of moments just sort of trying to finick around with it and trying to work out where it can sort of deploy without being in the front arc of the Salamandra, who, to be honest, is actually facing this way. It's just that his gun wouldn't poke into this little shack correctly. So there was a camo marker in the distance he needed to avoid, but just generally he managed to find a spot where it didn't get sniped, didn't get shot by anybody else. The next thing he does is he reforms the Link team. There are enough members nearby to move the HMG over to this position, and there will be a really brief moment around about here where he won't have cover against the tag, but off in the distance there is the position of the Salamandra. So he attempts to do that first, blasting him 5 dice on 15s against 1 dice on 17, and unluckily loses this HMG. I probably should have noted earlier that the Salamandra taking on the HMG didn't actually kill it. I may have said that in my commentary in the previous turn. That actually didn't happen, but it does happen in the NCA active turn once the Link team's reformed. So that's a bit unfortunate. Link team breaks. What we're now able to do, though, is move in with the Garuda, and this is as the tag has turned around after a successful change phase. So what we've got here is that the Garuda deploys behind him, the tag successfully passes the change phase in reaction to that, then the HMG shoots the tag unsuccessfully, HMG dies from the Pano Link team, and then the Garuda moves into base contact with the tag. Now this is the climax of the game. This is the most pivotal moment. So the Pano player says, I'm spending a short skill on my Garuda, it's moving into base contact, what do you want to do? And our Tunguska friend says, I'd like to flamethrower, please. And our PanOceania player says, are you sure that you want a flamethrower? He leaves it at that. And, of course, our Tunguska player here is not quite advanced enough to know what's about to happen. To be honest, I was watching from the sidelines and I'd completely forgotten what the play was here. But what's really going on is that the Garuda is wanting to use an electric pulse on the tag. An electric pulse is a close combat attack that a lot of remotes have, where it automatically goes off in a 7. So it's as if you rolled a dice roll of a 7 specifically for your close combat attack. And if your opponent doesn't beat that, they go into immobilization level 2 for this current turn and the next turn. So if it's not contested by the tag firing off a pistol or HRMC or attacking in close combat itself, it will work automatically. So just to confirm that, if we go to the wiki, CC weapon automatically works. It's considered to be a result of a 7. Player's not required to roll. If the opponent fails the face-to-face roll against the automatic result of 7, he'll be immobilized 2-state for 2 turns, which is just, it's just game-winning at this point. Just a quick note about etiquette. One thing you can do from the Pano player's perspective here is just to go ahead and tell your opponent, are you sure you want to use the flamethrower, because I do have an electric pulse and it will mean that your tag will automatically be immobilized for 2 turns. That's something he could have said but didn't. In my opinion, he's been perfectly sporting and sportingly enough. He's shown enough sportsmanship by at least asking the opponent if he's sure he wants to use the flamethrower. If your opponent's saying that to you, usually they've got some sort of trick there, and they're sort of giving you the chance to sort of think a bit before you miss it. So nothing wrong with the sportsmanship there. I think that what he said was fine, and I think that this is just a hard lesson that our Tunguska player here can learn. But what happens, of course, is the Garuda dies, is destroyed by the flamethrower. The tag is immobilized now for this turn, and next turn will easily be destroyed by the Squallow's HMG. I actually said to them after witnessing this, I said, dude, why didn't you do this before firing your Fusilier HMG at the tag? But anyway, that was a mistake. Alright, so I'll go through the rest of the bat rep fairly quickly. The Squallow moves around and starts peppering the Salamander with bullets, starts to stake wounds against that immediately. We've got the Engineer picking up now, moving around, repairing some bots. One of the bots actually dies as a result of failed repair checks. There's no Tech B. Didn't want to spend all of the command tokens. He's having to use them to reform link teams anyway. Bot also comes around towards the tag, repairs that as well. Tag fully repaired now, able to sort of retreat back to a better spot. And then he's able to move out with his Bulleteer charging through. Our Sniper getting a bit trigger happy here and revealing. So this is just in a bit of a desperate attempt to slow things down. Bulleteer shooting with assisted fire here would be at long range, ignoring cover, but not ignoring TO camos, so hitting on 3s on 4 dice. Sniper hitting on something like a 9 on 1 dice. Anyway, Sniper whiffs it, Bulleteer fails to dodge, and then in the next order, you can see the Bulleteer relative to the Sniper on the left, moving in a bit closer and wrecking him with once he comes into range, because then it's like 9s on 4 dice versus 9 on 1 dice. So, Harris team in a little bit of trouble. We've also got the camo marker over here, which can now move out. I think this is the end of the Pano turn, actually. He has destroyed the Salamandra. If I just shuffle back to this is the point in the game where he moves the tag out somewhere and shoots the Salamandra and pulls back. After a few volleys, the Salamandra is destroyed, and there's no engineers. So yeah, Bulleteer moves out and just ends camped behind one of these crates, goes into suppression fire at the end of that turn. So Nomad's trying to salvage the game, moving out with this this guy here and attempting to jammer the Bulleteer. Bulleteer just stays in suppression fire. He says, look, I'm happy to just be jammed. I'm happy to just have suppression fire there on my Bulleteer. But despite making that judgment call, the jammer fails to go off anyway, and the Bulleteer is fine. Trying to move in there with Merry Problems. She's poking around. So is the Cruiser with the Mark 12. Everybody's trying to get a piece of this Bulleteer, but nothing's really working. Mary moves around towards the middle of the table and fires a pitcher, which misses. So pretty disastrous overall. We're left with a position where it goes back to Pano, who NCA just has a really easy time of it now, just pulling through and In fact, easily destroying... In fact, Pano didn't even need to destroy the tag in the previous turn because it was still immobilized at that point, so it can't run away. So now he actually moves into attack. A bit dangerous because the Salamander can respond, but this is indeed the point where the tag starts to move through. Does gun him down eventually, not before getting too close to him and heavy pistoling him, I think. Then we do have the Blackfriar and crew moving out, trying to land a volley of multi-rifle hits onto the jammer. This is picked up by the Cruiser, who fires back and does eliminate the Blackfriar, if I recall correctly. There's his position there, and the Blackfriar, if I just point this out, looks a bit like this. So Blackfriar up there, Cruiser here, and there's a bit of an angle past this building up into the roof as he's trying to gun down onto the position of the jammer, if you guys can see that. So a bit of a trade there, and then because the jammer didn't in fact pick up the Bulleteer, it goes back to Pano, and the Cruiser's wiped out. Both Cruisers are in fact wiped out as the Bulleteer comes very close. Eventually gets hit by something and goes unconscious, but not before dealing the critical damage. We do have the Squallow sitting in the middle of the table, so as the last laugh here, he tries to move out with the other Heckler, puts down a... what do you call it, a fast panda next to the tag. Interventer comes into play, possesses the tag, who moves around and shoots at some random bot. But we call it there because the NCA player has one command token left, can just repossess the tag, move it into the middle of the table, and score a big victory. So overall, in terms of strategy, didn't really love it for Tunguska. It was a pretty weak list in my opinion as well. But hey, I mean, sometimes you just got to try things, got to have a bit of fun. It's just quite hard to completely wipe out your opponent if they're set up fairly defensively with just flash pulses and weak cheap units slowing you down. It's hard to just completely wipe the entire army off the board when they're a big 20 order list and then survive a counterattack. It's just very, very hard to do. But cool idea. I mean, I think if I was playing a Tunguska at 400 points with limited insertion, I'd probably go with the Hollow Man Link team and then have set the missile launcher Link team up there because you can easily jump down. And then just have a lot of expensive mid-rangey troops. Like you can have a bunch of Spectres, you can still probably afford a tag or a bike or something like that, and just sort of play it reasonably conservatively. If you are going to move out with the tag, I think it would have been fine to just pick off 4 or 5, the couple of Fusiliers and a few bots, and then just run back behind this building over here would have been better. Then you can turn it into a bit of a game. The Garuda wouldn't have been able to come down. You've got the Intervent preventing, big stuff coming towards you, otherwise you get hacked. Maybe if you'd had a jammer further to this side of the table as well, that would have helped support the tag, and then you can have turn after turn of the tag shooting and shooting and shooting, and after 3 rounds of just picking away at their line, you leave the tag out in the middle of the table, and there'll be much less to take care of it. Anyway, that was a live game reported by me, Tunguska versus NCA. Hope you guys enjoyed it.